heard almost 100 cases as a sitting circuit court judge, made many decisions, and what I've learned so far is what's important in that role is what I learned over the 5 years that I appeared and had the honor of saying every other week, appearing for the state as a prosecutor. For every other week for 5 years, I appeared in front of a court that entire week. I was responsible for the jury trial and all the hearings, the motion hearings, the sentencing, and everything else. That was an invaluable experience because that is hours upon hours sitting in different courtrooms amongst the different judges, seeing not only different styles. But my trial work is not just limited to being a prosecutor. I actually was selected by the judges to represent a man charged with first-degree intentional homicide. And another man, the defendant, after being appointed by one of the judges in an attempted first-degree homicide. I've also prosecuted homicide cases, some of the hardest cases that are out there. In addition to that, other than my private practice, in which I did many different things, including real estate, civil, guardian ad litem, doing termination of parental rights, many of the other family cases, and sitting through many trials of those. I also had the opportunity to both appear for the state of Wisconsin and for private individuals as an appellate attorney. And one of the key things I've already learned as a judge, one of your roles as the judge, is to ensure a fair trial and to protect the record, to make sure that when a trial happens, it happens one time, and appeal errors do not occur, costing this community more money. I was actually one of the prosecutors who was in charge of training our officers here in Kenosha on a yearly basis about what they have to do to make sure that when they interact with citizens, they respect their rights and handle the traffic stops appropriately. In the same way as a judge, my job is to know the law and to protect the record, making sure that people receive fair trials and are heard well. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to question number 2. David, if you liked it, what would you do to make sure you could be effective in areas of the law in which you have not regularly practiced?
You start this? Oh, I start everyone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't you have David Selby start?
Yeah, and the question was, what would I do, how would I become effective in areas that I don't have a lot of experience? For that, I want to tell a very quick story. My first client, when I was a private attorney, after I left the district attorney's office, came to me with a guardianship issue. Now, I had no clue about guardianships at that time. I've now learned a lot more. But more importantly, is I was in front of Judge Milosauskas, who was recently the court counsel, did guardianships every day for years on end. And this lady had a challenge to the law that was very unique. She challenged a policy that Judge Milosauskas had written himself. I walked into that courtroom, and I did the best I could, because what you learn in law school is true on the bench and true when you're in private practice. When you don't know an area of law, you research, you learn, you ask people who know the items or know that law better than you do. And that's what I did. I actually went in there, and I got Judge Milosauskas, who had written the policy saying that a care provider could not be a guardian, to actually say, you know what, the law changed, and in this situation, the paid providing caregiver may be a guardian. And in the same way, I'd be as a judge. If it's an area of law that I'm not as experienced as the other members of the judiciary, I would go and ask questions, and I would research and work hard, just as I have throughout my career.
You come out of law school, you're not worth much of anything. You learned a few phrases, you learned how to research the law, because there's a reason they call it the practice of law. What happens is, every case that comes into your door is new and different. And although you will draw on your experience, you will have to use your research skills to find out the little nuances of that particular case. So the virtue of having a broad background is that you have exposure to the various bases of law, such that when you read the cases, you have context for understanding the holdings of those cases. So in short, I think you're going to hear from all of us. Those areas of law we don't know, we're going to do our research. Thank you.
Basically, when I was in law school, I did internships with the DA's office, was hired by Robert Jamboy to be a prosecutor. When I left the district attorney's office and opened a general practice, I had my first family case. I was fortunate enough for the divorce case to have Mr. Don Mayhew using my office, and I had the ability to speak with him. He did give me some advice, and as the other stated, you do the research. I was also fortunate enough, there's a few judges, there's some secrets that attorneys know, that the judges here in Kenosha are they're very good. And they'll give you advice if it does not relate to them. Of course, you're not going to go to the judge that is handling the case, or there's a possibility in Kenosha we have family court judges. You wouldn't go to them, but you go to another judge. Judge Wilk was in the courtroom. I've spoken to him regarding suppression in criminal cases and other matters. We have great resources, and the Kenosha Bar. The attorneys are very friendly, and they're willing to, they'll give you advice, and that is the good thing about Kenosha. The attorneys are very good. The judges they have open door policies, so it's fortunate that we live here in Kenosha where we have an environment where it is very productive for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think anyone here tonight is a tax lawyer, but still you may expect that you may get questions asked of you regarding tax law. And what does somebody do when you have such a question like that? I don't think anybody here, any of us would ever like to have to consider dealing with the IRS or Department of Regulation, or Department of Revenue, and how do we approach something like this. But what you have to do is know how to grip such a problem. And it does involve looking through the law, reading the law and understanding the law, and one also must get to know the people too, so that you can understand what the intentions of the parties were, and one must also be able to understand what's going on in a particular case. It's one thing to know the law, it's another thing as well, though, to apply the law to the circumstance. And as a judge, you must apply the law that you know, and I believe that is what comes from 25 years of experience. I think that is what comes from dealing with people from different walks of life. And we do have various tools and the like to learn the law, and I think it requires knowledge of the law as well as who we are dealing with. Thank you.
Every one of us spent almost at least 2.5, some of us 3 years getting through law school. A very small percentage of that time really is spent dealing with clients or potential clients, even in a volunteer or advocacy basis. The majority of the 3 years that you spend in law school is being taught how to think, how to analyze situations that are unfamiliar to you. Every one of us, our first day of law school, they were throwing cases at us that were 250 years old and asking us to define phrases, and we had no idea. But what we learned is how to get those answers if we didn't have any idea. How to think, where to look, who to talk to. We do have a great group of judges here in Kenosha, and they are open to anyone to come in and ask questions. And if I were presented with something that I didn't know, the first thing that I would do would go to talk to one of the other judges who's done cases like that. But also, and equally important, is to know where to find the appropriate Wisconsin statute. Because as judges, we're not there to make law. We're not there to be activists. We're not there to legislate from the bench. We're there to decide a set of facts in front of us based on what the laws of the state of Wisconsin are. And the laws of the state of Wisconsin are all compiled in a bunch of books. And you can look in the books and you can find the statute. And if you look at the statute with the background of how to think like a lawyer and the assistance of other competent judges, every good judge would be able to learn new areas of law and be proficient in them as well. Thank you very much.
Well, you know, I said I wasn't gonna tell nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. Oh, I couldn't keep it to myself. You know, I said I wasn't gonna tell nobody, but I oh Lord, what the Lord has done for me. Yeah, Lordy, you know, I said I wasn't gonna shout for joy, but I I'm gonna shout for joy, but I oh, what the Lord has done for me. You ought to been there when He saved my soul. You ought to been there when He put my name. Don't you know that has done for me? Come on, help me now.
Can't keep it to myself. I said